Welcome along to Betting Weekly Live. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, James Eastham. Over the course of the next half hour or so, we'll be talking our way through the Thursday night soccer, highlighting all of the best bets when it comes to the UEFA Nations League. We've got South American World Cup qualifiers to cover as well. We will be pointing you in the right direction when it comes to where the money has gone for the NFL action this evening. Likewise, when it comes to the baseball. So plenty to get stuck into on this Thursday. Pleased to say that James is alongside me. James, international breaks, is it a yay or nay for you?
It's a big yay from me, Dan. Yeah, we were talking off air, weren't we? A lot of people don't like them because it gets in the way of the program of league matches that everybody's used to. I quite like the autumn period where you have the league program broken up by these international breaks in September, and then obviously the one we're in now in October and November. It might be because we have slightly less work to do these weeks. We don't have the whole program of 4 major European leagues to go through, but yeah, I tend to enjoy them.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste. It can be difficult for bettors. It can be more straightforward for some. It all depends how much work you put in and so on. We've hopefully done some of the hard yards for you. But as always, we like to get your selections as well. So if you fancy anything, put it in the YouTube comments. If you've got some bets on tonight's Nations League or World Cup qualifiers or anything else, let us know and tag us in with your winners at Because We Win is our X handle. Notable winners and losers for you over the course of the last 24 hours, and majorly featuring the baseball, a little bit of tennis as well. Some big action going down on the baseball, as you would imagine, getting into the postseason now. $35,000 play on the Padres on the money line. That was a loss against the Dodgers. Also money line live, we had a $17,000 play as well against the Dodgers, also a defeat. So the Bet Rivers boys took the cash there. Not so much with the Mets on the money line, and a $20,000 play against the Phillies, and also a $15,000 play on the Royals on the money line at plus 102 against the Yankees. That was a loss, of course. I don't know if any of these bets are Shakespeare's bets. Shakespeare is our resident baseball guru. So if you've got any plays, Shakespeare, let us know. We'll be talking about where the money's been going for the Thursday night games a little later. And also one sizable bet, one chunky play on the tennis that was a loser last night. Tommy Paul minus 1.5 sets live in play, minus 333 the price against Thomas Machak. That was a loser. So a good day for Bet Rivers, it would appear, yesterday. Get your comments in. Plenty of comments coming in already. Rafael says, a good morning from Miami, Florida. I hope you are safe in Florida after what's been going on there, Rafael. I really do. Let's talk UEFA Nations League, shall we? We've got 8 games that we're going to rattle through over the course of the next half an hour or so. We're going to go game by game here. We've not included the early kickoffs. These are all a little later at 2:45 Eastern. First up, we can see on the list there, James, I don't know if you've got any interest in this one, Gibraltar against San Marino. I did a little bit of digging into the prices. This is the shortest that San Marino have ever been in a competitive match away from home. They're plus 510. To get the better of a Gibraltar side to a minus 150. Gibraltar soccer fans maybe are licking their lips at that sort of price. I don't know. Obviously, had this fantastic story about San Marino ending a winless run of 140 games when they beat Liechtenstein by a goal to nil. They were plus 220 to do that in September. It's their first ever competitive win. Any angle at all in for this game between the minnows in the bottom league in the Nations League?
Well, I suppose one thing you can say about this game, Dan, is you've got comparable recent form in the sense that they have both just played the same team, haven't they? They've both just played Liechtenstein last month, as you mentioned. San Marino had that amazing win, 1-0 at home to Liechtenstein, and then a couple of days later, it was Gibraltar at home to Liechtenstein, and Gibraltar failed to win. It ended in a 2-2 draw with a couple of late goals in that game, one for each side. So if you look at it on that basis, it's actually quite a useful way to compare the two sides. Would I have an interest in it myself? No, I wouldn't. I would leave this alone. I think, obviously, number one, I don't know enough about the two teams. Number two, how much weight do you put on that Liechtenstein defeat the Liechtenstein suffered to San Marino? Do you see it as a beginning of something for San Marino, or just them beating another weak side when they had a good day? So not enough really information that you can rely on in this game. I suppose some Marino fans would say they're overpriced, wouldn't they, after having won? I think they'd look at that and they'd think, well, plus 510, it's probably a bit too big. But not for me, Dan. This is one of the games in the Nations League tonight that I would be leaving alone.
Yeah, same for me. Likewise, Austria, Kazakhstan. I've got to be honest here. Minus 9-10 Austria. I mean, they were everyone's darlings, James, weren't they, in the Euros to a certain extent, with Buttle, of course, in charge. But they were beaten by Norway in their last game. Kazakhstan without a winning six. If this was in Almaty in Kazakhstan, it might be a different story. But for me, I'd probably leave this one alone. Any line in regarding Austria, Kazakhstan?
Yeah, I'd leave this alone too. I mean, I wasn't particularly hot on Austria at the Euros. I've got to say they probably did as well as I think they should have done. You're absolutely right. They had a huge groundswell of support, didn't they, going into that tournament? A lot of people were tipping them to go quite deep, and in the end, that didn't quite happen.
Did I say Hassan? I meant Rangnick. Sorry, go on,
yes.
Continue.
And you've mentioned, actually, they've not really done that well since the Euros, have they? I think it's 1 point from their 2 matches so far. I think they're a bit shorter now than they were, actually. I think they were minus 715 or something like that at one stage. So obviously way into minus 9-10 at home. They should win this game. Let's just say that Austria absolutely should win this game. But it's not really from our point of view about whether they'll win it. It's about whether they're worth backing in any particular way. Obviously on the money line, extremely short. I personally wouldn't be backing them on the handicap at the moment either. I don't think their form, if you do go back to the start of the Euros, which is it's almost 4 or 5 months ago now, through to here, there's not enough from Austria for me at the moment to be backing them in any way on this game.
Yeah, Ming's been on, says Austria have to be the best bet today, but how are you getting with a Ming? That's the question. Surely you're not just going to back about minus 9-10 on the money line. There's got to be a different angle for valued players. What about Finland against Republic of Ireland here, James? Finland plus 190, Republic of Ireland plus 175. I mean, they've almost got identical records, haven't they? I mean, they've played 2, lost 2. Jaime Hallgrimsson, who's come in, I'm not quite sure how he's styling Ireland at the moment. It's not been a great start. Marko Kaneva has been at Finland a long time, but after the highs of qualifying for the Euros back in 2020, obviously the tournament taking place the following year, they've been on a bit of a downward trajectory as well, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. One thing I think is quite interesting on this game is where the goal line is set. So the goal line, obviously, you can see there on the graphic, is set fairly low. Now, over 1.5 there is minus 195. But the goal line around evens is set at 2 goals. And I think what that's down to is the fact that they've both played 2 matches so far in the Nations League and they failed to score. So I think it's reflecting the fact that in their 4 games cumulatively, they've yet to find the net. What I think it's maybe overlooking a bit is that they have conceded quite freely. They both lost by a couple of goals, and in their games in September, I think Finland lost 3-0 in their game against Greece. So across the 4 games they've played, okay, they've not scored, but they have been conceding goals. Then it's a case of, well, which of those 2 factors will be the bigger factor tonight? Will it be that the clean sheets that they haven't kept will be a factor and they're going to defend poorly, or actually are they going to struggle to score because there are so few goals in these 2 teams? My reading of it is I think they're going to have to go for it. Yeah, if you're going to have a win in this period, it's against your weaker opponents, right? And they're both facing what I think they would see as their weaker opponent here. So I'm expecting a pretty open game here. I think they have to go for it because of how poorly they've done so far. Will that lead to goals? Well, there's not a great deal of quality in attack, but I think it should lead to chances. So it's not really a pick for me, but looking at where the goal line was set here and the fact it's quite close to unders, overs at 2, I'd be slightly tempted, I think, by over 2 goals rather than under 2 goals here, because I think it could have 2 goals and then you get your money back. And if I wanted to be on either side of that, it would be overs. As I say, the lack of quality in the 2 sides in attack is a concern, but I think the way they'll approach the game will be to really go for it. And that should at least lead to chances, I think.
Yeah, 64% of the money on the overs, incidentally, for that game. And that Ireland-Finland game has got the biggest split in terms of tickets on, 42% on the money line for Ireland, and Finland 58%. So it's quite an even split. We've got an awful lot of bets on the favourites. There's quite a lot of short price favourites over the course of this evening, so no real surprise. But that one's a fairly even split of money for the overs as well. Ming says -1 on the Asian, -600. This is the Austrian game that Ming's talking about. We've not really covered the early kickoff. Sorry about that, COD Gaming, because they're about to get underway, aren't they, in the next sort of 50 minutes or so. Charlie Summers has been on, says, rumoured to be an attacking lineup for England tonight, 2.5 line at Wembley against a non-top 20 ranked team. Just feels wrong. Let's get on to that England-Greece game then. 98% the money line, 90% of the money on the money line has come for England. 83%, Charlie, of the tickets on the overs today. What about England-Greece then, James? Third game in charge for Lee Carsley. Done nothing wrong at all so far. Both 2-0 wins. Obviously, both unders there for, but also both wins for England. But Greece are on a little bit of an upswing as well. Ivan Jovanovic in charge, a coach who played in Greece in his time. He's coached a lot in Greece as well, so he knows the game strongly. They are potentially on a bit of an upward trajectory themselves. Just generally on the game, first up before some picks, because we're sort of going against each other for this one.
Yeah, we are a little bit. I take the point on Greece. They've done really well so far. If you look at their results, they had a big 3-0 win against Finland. They backed that up by going to the Republic of Ireland and winning 2-0. Yeah, they are big results. You know, it's not just narrow wins. They were pretty comfortable wins. So I think they bring a lot of confidence into this game. There's no reason why they shouldn't feel they can certainly give England a tough match at times during the 90 minutes. There's obviously going to be periods where they struggle. So there are factors in Greece's favour, but I don't really see them doing as well, I think, tonight as the market does. Actually, there's a couple of reasons for that. The first is the guy that's got 3 goals for them so far in 2 games. Ioannidis is out, the Panathinaikos striker. That is a big blow. Were he playing, I would maybe see this game differently, because in him, they've got a player who's in form in front of goal, could maybe nick a goal, and that would be a factor on the handicap. With him out, I think Greece's chances of scoring are smaller. And you mentioned Lee Carsley, and for me, that is a factor, because he is obviously still the caretaker manager. He's still on trial to a degree. I know they're not sort of framing it that way, but he'll want to give his best because he's obviously interested in getting the job full time. And I think that will keep the players hungry as well. What we've heard from the camp so far as regards what do the players think of him has been pretty positive. Now, you could argue, well, they're bound to say that, aren't they? It's like
new boss. You're not going to slag the new boss off, are you?
Right, substitute teacher and all that. They're always going to back him. But I think there's some authenticity to the comments about them enjoying the training and liking how he's trying to get them playing. I think we maybe haven't seen the best of how England can play under him so far in his 2 games in charge. So I think there's a chance actually of England improving here on what we saw in their first internationals under Lee Carsley. And a second factor, which is a slightly controversial one and a big talking point for us in England here, is that Harry Kane, we're almost sure won't be playing in this game. He's obviously a huge figure in the recent history of English football and a goal scorer, but in a funny way, will it make England a little bit more dangerous in attack when he's not there? Now, we did see that to some degree at the Euros when he was brought off and the attack became a little bit more fluent. So there's a whole bunch of players, I think, tonight in the final third who will be champing at the bit to show what they can do. Either a straight swap in attack, if that's what Carsley decides to do and pick someone like Ollie Watkins, or if not, the chance for some of those attackers who play just off the front man to get into that space that will be a little bit more open without Kane there and show what they can do in front of goal. So I think there's individual reasons in this squad why England will be really, really fired up for this tonight. So, yeah, looking at everything on the game, I fancy England here. I think they should win by a couple of goals. I think anything other than a 2-goal or more winning margin of victory would be an underachievement tonight. So I'm backing England here. They're one of my tips. I'm backing them on the Asian handicap down there, -1.5 on the Asian handicap at -103. So it's minus money, but it's only just minus money. And before looking at the prices, when I did all my research on the game, I actually thought England might be at that price, but with a -1.75 at handicap start. So I was pleasantly surprised when I saw this. I'm backing them. We'll see what happens. We chatted off air, Dan. You said you never quite know with England. I do still have that part of me. In my thoughts, you never quite know what you're going to get. But I do think tonight is a great chance for them to win by a couple of goals, and I'm willing to back them to do that.
Duncan Evans says 2-0 or 3-0 England to win under 3.5 goals. Steve says England should really be a class above Greece. England to win to nil double with Greece and Finland in this international window. Yeah, that could easily happen. I looked at the game and I thought I want to get with Greece somehow because of their good start. I mentioned the coach as well. When he was at Panathinaikos, he was a massive unders manager. He had 2.5 seasons. He won the Greek Cup at Panathinaikos in the 22-23 year. If you backed unders every single game, you made a significant amount of money. I don't think they're a particularly good side, but they've just got a bit of confidence. I looked at the sort of back 4-5, if you like, with a keeper. Obviously, Vlachodimos is at Newcastle. He played the League Cup game, but he's not played in the Premier League this season. Koulourakis has been playing for Wolfsburg, but Steve Whistle will tell you that Wolfsburg generally pretty leaky, haven't had a clean sheet this season. Mavropanis did start for West Ham, but not the last game. And obviously, West Ham have had a poor start to the season. Tsimikas, who's the Liverpool fullback, and Rota, who's the side of AK. I don't think they're great. And as you mentioned, Ioannidis not playing. Pavlidis might start. He's done all right for Benfica, but not been fantastic. And yeah, further forward for an England point of view, it's just who will play in that advanced role. It's one of those ones that if you get a steer, if it's going to be a Bellingham, if it's going to be a Saka, if it's going to be a Palmer as the sort of focal point, the false nine, he might be the value in terms of goal scorers. I mean, they're all roughly what we're talking here, James, plus 230, plus 250 anytime. That's
they are. But you're absolutely right. I think if you did have a strong view on how the team would line up, then at that point, the prices do start to sort of separate out a bit. An example of that would be that what Ollie Watkins is plus 138 to score any time. Kind of makes sense if you see him coming in as a straight swap at the number 9. If they change it around a bit, as we've been hearing they might do, and play Bellingham as sort of a false 9 and almost leave the penalty area open for him to attack, well, then that changes things completely. Bellingham is plus 290 to score any time. So that's obviously a much bigger price than Ollie Watkins, and he might find himself in the similar sort of positions. There might be money for Grealish, not one I would back myself. That's purely on the basis that he obviously scored during the last international break. He's plus 330. Whether he'll start, I don't know. Cole Palmer would probably attract a bit more attention from bettors because of how well he's been scoring in the Premier League. He's plus 255. So there's a whole bunch of players there who are interesting. I suppose Ollie Watkins and Solanke we should mention as well, who's obviously been recalled to the squad. He's plus 180. As you'd expect, they're a little bit shorter. They are the number 9s. My instinct would be to maybe try and pick someone at longer odds and maybe get a bit more value, but it's all about the team news. And we know this is England's big problem, isn't it? There's so many players to try to fit into that final third. We're not quite sure who will start, but I think when the team is named, one of those is going to look like pretty good value, I would think.
Yeah, to answer Ming's question, I think they'll come with a low block. I think they'll try and defend. Whether they're good enough, I don't know. I still think unders might be a little bit of value. I'd rather play unders than maybe something like both teams to score nos. But look, it's a tricky one. You can see a very sort of workman-like 2-0 England scoreline, and if you're playing Greece, on the Asian line with a 1.5 goal start, you're going to get beat with that. As you say, plus 175 might have tipped it towards Greece's favour. It's going to be an interesting game from a betting point of view. Let's move on to the second tranche of UEFA Nations League games. I know we've got one or two on the comments talking about Armenia plus money against the Faroe Islands. Yeah, they are plus 110. We'll have a line on that. We'll just talk about Norway, Slovenia first, James, of all, because I've seen across social media a lot of the sort of betting public are looking to get with Slovenia here. They've got a really good record recently, just one loss in the last 18 in 90 minutes. And although they don't win that often, they are good enough to get draws in some big games, as we saw at the Euros as well. Norway seem to be chronic underachievers when it comes to international football. Haaland will play, I presume. Ødegaard, of course, is out. And I think there's been quite a lot of interest in Slovenia or tie around about plus 114. I've got it down here. Any angle for you, Norway, Slovenia?
Well, I think the price here reflects people expecting at some point Norway to start to play to the level that they should be playing at, actually, because they're so short. And I was surprised they were this short when I saw the prices. I think they were actually minus 143 the other day, and they've got a bit shorter. But there's a lot of talent in the squad. They should be doing better results-wise than they have been. Obviously, Haaland is a huge weapon to have against any side, let alone a more mid-ranking team. And I think it's not disrespectful to say Slovenia are a mid-ranking team, even though they obviously did well at the Euros, making it through to the knockout stage. But looking at those prices, there is no way I personally would be backing Norway. at those prices. I think it is too short based on what we've seen from these two sides over the last 12 to 18 months. I thought Slovenia were really good at the Euros. I thought they were very well organised. And, well, you've said it yourself, Dan, with that loss rate is so low. Then why would you want to back Norway here at minus money at home? I just don't see it myself. So Slovenia +1 on the Asian handicap, I would definitely take. It's a little bit too short for me, actually. When I was looking at the handicap prices earlier, Slovenia +0.75 on the Asian handicap was minus 113. I'd be tempted by that because you only lose half your stakes then if Slovenia lose by a single goal. They'll obviously be interested in Haaland. I have to say, I'd be more interested in an Erling Haaland bet, really, than a Norway bet. I did see that he was minus 124 to have over 1.5 shots on target. Now, you can only imagine everything will be fed into him in the final third. He obviously won't get as much service, you wouldn't think, playing for Norway as he does for Man City. But can he manage 2 shots on target against Slovenia? He should be trying to manage 2 shots on target, shouldn't he? And the team should really be giving him that type of service at home. So if I was taking a bet on Norway, it would be Haaland over 1.5 shots on target at minus 124. But in the match betting, I definitely lean towards Slovenia here rather than Norway.
Yeah, definitely Slovenia in the tie. I think at plus money is a play. Haaland plus 102 to score. He scored in 17 of 32 internationals. He's got, or is it 17 of 35? I can't remember now. He's got basically 1 in 2 in terms of matches. He's scored more goals because he scored a number of hat-tricks. So that can sort of skew your stats a little bit. It's all about how many games he scores in rather than the amount. Benjamin Šeško on the other side of that is in really good form. He's got 10 goals for club and country this season, including scoring in both Nations League games so far. He's around about plus 255 to score at any time. He's a streaky player. He scored in 7 Bundesliga games on the spin late last season. He's already got, 4 in his last 3, I think, for his club side, a couple against Juventus, a couple against Augsburg recently. He's plus 650 to score first. Israel, France. You haven't got to play in this one, James, which is interesting because obviously our French correspondent and all that. This game being played in Budapest here. Any sort of narrative, any sort of betting thoughts on it nonetheless?
Well, yeah, it's really important, I think, for bettors to know that it is being played on neutral territory. I think some people who didn't know that might be surprised at just how short France are. Obviously, they're the favourites, but away from home, minus 530 might look pretty big. It's not really away from home. It's really a neutral venue game. And that explains partly why they are particularly short. We don't think there'll be a lot of France fans there, though. Looking at the French media, they think there'll only be a couple of hundred France supporters making it to the game. So not a great deal of support for France. Few things really that caught my eye about this game. You're right. I don't have a bet on it, but it was partly that price. I think France -2 Asian handicap, minus 105. They should be looking to equal that type of handicap, I think, but I wasn't confident enough that France can beat a -2 handicap start here. And there's a few reasons for that. The first is there are ongoing concerns about Didier Deschamps as the manager. France obviously didn't have a great Euros, at least in terms of how they played. Some fairly underwhelming performances. The media are reporting that there is tension in the camp. Some of the players have maybe lost a little bit of faith in Deschamps, the manager. Second thing we should say is that there's no Kylian Mbappe. He's been left out of the squad this time. It was partly because of an injury, and then he went and played for Real Madrid just before the international break, which has muddied the waters a bit, but it looks like more of a scheduled rest than anything else. Without him, he's not had a great year for France, we should say, but they're obviously going to be less dangerous without him. And the third factor is that Antoine Griezmann has retired from international football ahead of these fixtures. So no Mbappe, no Griezmann. There are obviously other talented attackers in this squad. But I wasn't confident that the France that are going to take to the field tonight have got a great deal of experience or fluidity about them, anything like that. Having said all of that, I'm not really prepared to back Israel either. I don't think they're anywhere near good enough on a normal night to stop France from winning. So it was a game really for me to leave alone. But a couple of players may be worth flagging up, Dan, because we do have some team news on how we think France will line up. The first is that Christopher Nkunku should be playing at some stage tonight. He might start. He's obviously had a lot of injury problems. It's a chance for him tonight to show what he can do. Again, very keen to play for France, having missed out on the World Cup and various other times with injury. One other thing I thought was worth flagging up as well, because there is no Mbappe and no Griezmann, it looks as though the captain for the first time for France tonight will be Aurélien Tchouameni, the Real Madrid midfielder. He's plus 132 to have over 0.5 shots on target. Now, knowing Trameni as a character and how he is, I think he'll want to put in a really big performance tonight as captain. He does have a sense of rising to the occasion, and he has got a pretty good shot on him. We have seen that, although he doesn't always get into the forward position. So I almost had a lean on Trameni here to have a shot on target at plus 132. If you are looking for an interest in the game, that would be my suggestion. But there's too many uncertainties really for me about France tonight to want to back them. And as I say, I don't fancy Israel either. So it's a watching brief for me on this one.
You have got to play in the Italy-Belgium game, and regulars of the European show will know that James is hugely adept at finding some shot-on-target plays every single week for the European show, usually in Liga. And over the course of the last year or so, we've had some very good success. I'm using the royal we there, obviously, it's James. Italy versus Belgium is where the pick comes. Italy played 2-1-2. Belgium without quite a few players. Anana out, Cels, who might have started out. I think that Lukaku's not going to play in the next couple of games. He wants to settle in at Napoli. That was the sort of line that I heard. So therefore, and I think there's about 4 or 5 newbies in the squad as well. So you tend to think we're getting that change of the guard with Belgium. It was probably a bit long overdue. But you've got a play in this one for us, James.
Yeah, well, I think that team news you've alluded to is crucial here because there's a lot of big name players who won't be there. You sense they maybe are going to try something different, give some of the fringe players a chance to perform. And I think it gives someone like Yuri Tielemans a chance here to show what he can do, actually, because he's not one of the most senior players in the squad, generally speaking. But I think he'll play a part in this game. So, yeah, looking through the shots on target market, as you'd expect, for Belgium, Lois Openda, who will probably lead the attack with no Lukaku, is the shortest price by a long way to manage a shot on target. He's minus 150. Then you got people like Trossard, who's plus 160 to have a shot on target. Yuri Tielemans is plus 300 just to manage a shot on target. Now, to me, that looks like a really big price, considering you haven't got Anana in the side. You haven't got Lukaku up front. There's going to be opportunities, you would imagine, to get forward if he starts. And he is a player who's got a decent shot on him. Maybe he doesn't always get the chance in the teams he's played for to show that, but we know he can certainly hit the target. So you're not looking for him to score here in this game. It's just for a shot on target. And I feel for a midfielder who starts and who has got that ability to get forward, a price around plus 300 just to manage one shot on target is always worth taking. So I feel to some degree this price hasn't got baked into it, his chances of starting and who else around him might not be playing. I think if that was all taken into account, he might be a little bit shorter than this. So, yeah, he was my pick on the game. It's Yuri Tielemans of Belgium. Just to have a shot on target. It's over 0.5 shots on target, and he's available to do that at plus 300.
If you've been following James on the European show, you'll know they are shrewd selections. Italy, 1 or 2 changes in their squad. Daniel Maldini, who is son of, is in the squad, as is Nicola Pisilli. Haven't got a lot of strikers that I would trust, to be honest. Maldini, if he is playing a bit further forward for Monza, has only got 1 goal this season. Moise Kean's only got 2 for Fiorentina. Raspadori, he's not a regular starter for Napoli. Having said all of that, looked at some stats from Spalletti. 12 competitive games, 8 of the 12, both teams to score yes, which is available at minus 120. Duncan says, I think straight Italy win on the money line is the nap tonight. Let's just remind you of the prices. Italy minus 105. Yeah, maybe could be worse. They've started well. And just very briefly, James, Faroe, Armenia. Dave Clark says Armenia plus money, one of the best bets of the night tonight. Have you got anything for us here? No wins in 5 for the Faroes. Armenia in a bit of form. 2 wins the last 3.
No, I will defer judgment there to Dave and anybody else who's been following these teams. I must admit, no, I don't have a view on this. I did have a quick look at it. Yeah, if the teams are really, really small in your international football, I tend to just leave them alone. I don't really drop that low down. So I don't know if you do, Dan, but this very much fell into the same category for me as the San Marino Gibraltar game. I'll just leave it alone. I
went down a rabbit hole of goal scorers for Armenia, but I know the Bet Rivers haven't priced them up yet. Grant Leon Ranos, who scored 4 in his first 2 internationals, but none in the last 11. But he did score a hat trick for Borussia Mönchengladbach reserves the other day. Anyway, that's my Armenia goal scorer pick. Let's rattle through some South American World Cup qualifying, shall we? Here, because some really big games coming your way tonight. NBC Comedy has got Austria, England, France on the money line there. That's a little parlay for listeners and viewers. Bolivia, Colombia, we've got to talk about first. We're back at El Alto. They have this is just a cheat code, isn't it? Here, what are we? 4,250 meters above sea level, opposed to La Paz, which is just 3,500 meters above sea level. They obviously beat Venezuela in their last home game 4-0. I just don't know what to do about this one. James, I don't know if you've got a line about Bolivia, Colombia, because Colombia are in brilliant form. I think it's something like, is it 31 unbeaten in 90 minutes? They were beaten in the Copa America final by Argentina, but only after extra time. On the face of it, you can say plus 138 Colombia should be a bet, but we're at El Alto, so who knows?
Well, this is it. I mean, I was disappointed actually when I saw the price on Colombia because their form has been so good. I was hoping that it was going to be one of those days where Bolivia home advantage made them default favourites. And actually, for once, you might find some value on opposing that. But that price on Colombia was shorter than I was hoping for because, yeah, they've been great. I mean, they're unbeaten in 8 qualifiers so far for the World Cup. It's 4 wins and 4 draws. I think it's 1 win and 3 draws away from home. For Colombia. So on that basis alone, you could back them to get something. If anything on the money line, I'd be tempted to back the tie. You know, you spend so much time looking at the home and the away side, you can overlook it, can't you? But obviously Colombia have got 3 out of 4 draws, ties away from home. That might be the value pick here because obviously Bolivia playing where they're playing should even it up in terms of there's a difference in quality here, Colombia being the better side, but that home advantage and altitude might even it up. If I was going for a pick on the game, it would be the tie. I was hoping in some way to do Colombia tie no bet, something like that. They were a little bit short for me to find the opportunity to do it. So yeah, I'd lean towards the tie. I think Colombia should get something here. Obviously, the venue, the location makes it difficult, but they have been in really good form and they're obviously a much stronger side than Bolivia. So the tie for me probably would be the best way to play it.
Lee's been on, says Colombia draw no bet. Yeah, could be shrewd from Lee. That one. Ian reckons Bolivia will surprise Colombia. And Steve says Colombia unbeaten in 12 versus Bolivia and won their last 2 trips here. The altitude might not be such a factor here. I can tell you, Steve, that 9 of the starting 11 for the Colombia-Argentina World Cup qualifier all play in Europe. So they're going Europe to El Alto. Good luck with that. That's going to be tough. Venezuela, Argentina, we can look at next in terms of the prices. Venezuela here plus 650, Argentina minus 195. Leo Messi back. That's the headline, James, isn't it here? Because he hasn't played for the national side since the Copa America final, and he didn't finish that game. Let's not forget. An ankle injury has kept him out since. He has been playing Major League Soccer and he's been in good form. You've got a little bit of a lean, have you, for us here for this one?
Yeah, I thought Messi was a little bit big actually in a couple of the markets. Maybe some concerns about his form and not so much his form, his fitness. Obviously, the fact he's not coming into the game with a huge bank of action behind him. But I was a little bit surprised he's such big plus money in the over 1.5 shots on target market. You can back Messi to have over 1.5 shots on target at plus 138. I thought that would be nearer to maybe 100 and 105, 110, something like that. When you take into account, obviously, his prowess from set pieces, both direct free kicks and penalties, and you're really only looking for him to have 2 shots on target, that would be my lean in the game. I actually thought there's pretty good value. On the game in general, I think Argentina obviously should win this. They've got 6 wins out of 8 in the qualifiers so far. The only 2 teams they've lost to are probably the other 2 top sides. Second and third behind them, Colombia and Uruguay. They've been winning the games against the rest of South America, and in some cases fairly comfortably. So they should get a win here. But one thing to say about Venezuela, they've been very good at home. Not only difficult to beat, but actually fantastic defensively as well. So it won't be a complete pushover. It won't be a walkover for Argentina. And they're obviously short price, minus 195, I think. So I'd left that market alone. I think they will win. You maybe want to fancy them on the Asian handicap, -1 at minus 110. That way, if they do, when you get your stakes back, if it's by 1 goal, and then see if they can go and win by more. But I just felt that Messi pick, over 1.5 shots on target at plus 138, given, as I say, you'd expect him to be on all the set pieces, is a fairly appealing pick here.
COD Gaming says Durango at 350 European prices. Yeah, that could be good given his form. Certainly, and Ian's been back on El Alto, a massive advantage for Bolivia. Venezuela did draw with Uruguay, but that was a much changed Uruguay because they've got half a squad banned, haven't they, at the moment? Ecuador, Paraguay, and Chile, Brazil to look at. We have got an official play from James in the Ecuador-Paraguay game. What I can tell you, though, our friends at Bet Rivers gave me all the details of where the money is going here. 88% of the money taken has gone on overs here, James, which means you're being a little bit contrarian with your play. Ecuador, Paraguay, what's the pick?
Yeah, I'm very strongly on unders here, and nothing fancy, no fancy thinking behind it. I'm literally going on the stats, because the stats on these two sides so far in the World Cup qualifiers are so strongly on unders. It's almost unbelievable. I think not only have 14 out of the 16 games that they've played between them been under 2.5 goals. I think all 14 of those matches have been under 1.5 goals. I make it 5 0-0 draws and 9 1-0 wins, either for them or against them, if you combine the games that Ecuador and Paraguay have played. So the market, to me, doesn't completely reflect that. Obviously, that run can't go on forever. And I do understand the money going for overs, because people will be looking at it and think, well, it can't go on forever. At some point, these two sides are going to start scoring some goals. I totally get that. But I was a little bit surprised to see the prices, because under 1.5 is plus 150. I think even if you do take into account that maybe there'll be some regression back to overs games, I still think that price is pretty big. So my pick was to go under 2 goals, which is available at minus 125. I feel that that's a pretty good pick. If there are exactly 2 goals in the game, you'll get your stakes back, and you only lose if there are three goals or more in the match. And there's been so little sign of that in the games involving these two sides. I just couldn't overlook it. So that was my pick. It was under two goals at minus 125.
Yeah, Asian line for that Ecuador-Paraguay game. Chile, Brazil, as you can see on screen, Chile plus 510, Brazil minus 165, the tie plus 285 here. Steve says, call me crazy, but actually Brazil might win for once. They're still awful, though. Ian reckons that Chile are not doing well. That is very true. Brazil just 4 wins the last 14. They've lost 4 of the last 5 World Cup qualifiers. Dorival Jr. in charge, of course, these days, but no Alisson, no Bremer, no Militao. Vinicius Jr. isn't playing. According to reports, Igor Jesus is going to start up front. I'd never heard of him. Had to have a look at his stats. He's been playing out in Dubai recently. He's now at Botafogo, who are top of the table in Serie A in Brazil. He's got 5 goals this season, including the winner at the weekend. But that is a bit of a call. He's around about plus 200 to score at any time, something like that. I wanted to get with Chile or just against Brazil here, James, because Brazil are so bad. But as Ian has pointed out, Chile are pretty poor as well. Briefly on Chile, Brazil for us.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Very difficult to support Brazil. They played so badly, haven't they? I think I was against them in the last international break when they played Ecuador. I'd love to be against them again here. I think if you look at the forward line, there's not many goals in it. That's the players who we expect to start. But I think Chile are just so average. You can't really oppose Brazil here. I agree with Steve in the comments. They should get the win here almost by default because of who they're playing against. So, yeah, it's one for me to leave alone. I expect Brazil to win, but I wouldn't be backing them at the short odds that they are on this match.
Just to wrap up with the soccer, Ming's been back on Bahrain, Indonesia, under 2.25 goals is my best international bet. Well done, Ming. That is as random as they get. You must meet RJ. You'd have conversations forever with these random ones. Shakespeare has been on. Shakespeare, we're going to get to your play in just a second, but you can see it on screen as well. Just want to talk briefly about the NFL that's coming your way tonight, because it's the 49ers at the Seahawks. We're at Lumen Field, of course, for this one. Those are the latest Bet Rivers prices. In terms of where the money has been going today, on the money line, 85% the money, 76% the tickets on the 49ers. And again, the spread, similarly, everybody wants to be with the San Francisco side, 77% the money, 58% the tickets, over and under, and the line set at 49 points here. The vast majority of the money and the tickets are on overs. In terms of the baseball, now Shakespeare was just on a second ago with his comments. He always comes on late. And Shakespeare says, Cleveland Indians over Detroit Tigers minus 125. That is his play. Had Detroit and Kansas City yesterday. Well, I can tell you that in terms of the money on game 4 of the postseason here, we've got the Guardians at the Tigers. Tigers lead 3-1. The money line, 78%. The money in the Guardians, 58%, 56% of the tickets on the Tigers. The spread again is on the Guardians here, 62% the money, 63% of the tickets on the Tigers, and the over and under. 65% of the money is on the under, but most of the tickets, most of the small cash is on the overs. Game 4 for the Yankees at the Royals. Yankees lead 2-1 here on the money line. All about the Yankees. On the spread as well, all about the Yankees. Fairly even split when it comes to the overs and unders on that one. 55% the money on overs, 58% of the tickets on the unders. So that's the baseball. Shakespeare, we wish you well. Just a reminder, he's gone for the Tigers at -125. That's the play from Shakespeare. James, thanks for your company. We've rattled through an awful lot of games there. We've had some picks and some leans, but if you had to nail it down for your best bet when it comes to this first tranche of international games across the globe, what would it be? Where would it be?
It would be Ecuador, Paraguay, under 2 goals at -125.
Great stuff. That's James' best play. Watch out for those shot on targets as well. Lots to look forward to tonight. Hit us up on Twitter at Because We Win. Let us know what you're playing. We will be back, of course, tomorrow for another live show. Again, we'll feature soccer heavily. Get your picks in the comments as well. Always like to see what you're betting. We wish you luck for tonight's action. That is your lot from myself and James. Good luck. It is goodbye. We'll speak soon.